you need to know where to go and not the morning of, like, where's the wedding, where's the venue going to be? Like, she knows where the venue is. So why not have something about this to say, I didn't know where to go? That is crazy. The day of the wedding, you don't know where to go, and you're waiting on the bride who has got all this stuff to do, the hair, the makeup, first look, photos before the wedding, like all this stuff, and you got to meet her to get paid and meet her to figure out where to go. It's crazy. Damon here with Complete Media. Thank you for rocking with me one more time. I am doing another reaction video. This one is from the People's Court.
Get out of my courtroom. Get out.
A pleasure.
Out. Oh, no, he's not moving fast enough, Douglas.
If Douglas touches me, you will not be happy, Your Honor.
You know what? If Douglas beats you to a pulp, I'll be delighted. Get out.
And I'm going to read what it says right here. The plaintiff claims she hired the defendant to make a cake on her wedding, but the baker was a no-show on the big day. She's suing for pain and suffering. The defendant says she's been baking for 45 years and claims the plaintiff never paid her to create the cake. She's filed a countersuit for her losses. This is going to be an interesting case because I am privy to wedding cakes. As in the wedding industry, you typically see a cake at the wedding reception, but we don't provide cakes at all. We do the DJ, we do photography, we do videography. So I want to see exactly what happens with this vendor. The part that I want to touch on before we go into the video is what I've said in my other videos, which I will link up at the top. Pain and suffering. Not having a wedding cake at your wedding is definitely something that is not optimal. You obviously want to have a wedding cake at your wedding, but what pain and suffering is there if there's not a wedding cake? So that part for me is a little suspect. If the baker dropped the ball and didn't provide the cake, then it should be customary, obviously, to give a refund and possibly more because you didn't show up and you're supposed to, and your word is your bond and your reputation is everything in the wedding industry. So the baker, let's say it was $500 for a cake, then maybe it's the refund of the cost of the cake plus another maybe half, so $250. So then that would be $750 for not providing the cake, and a little bit extra for the hassle of wondering where your cake is and not showing up, and like I said, with your reputation. But as far as pain and suffering, that one to me is going to be hard, but I could be wrong. And then where the defendant comes in, it sounds like this might be a contracts portion where the plaintiff is required to make payments. So you typically pay a deposit and then you make your final payment. And if you miss anything on that schedule, then you as the client have breached that contract. And then that the vendor doesn't have to provide, and then they also can receive damages. Hashtag not legal advice. So I'm interested in this case in particular because the other one that I watched was not with, no, it was with Judge Milian as well, where she did award pain and suffering, but that's because allegedly that photographer was just a straight up loser.
There are situations in life, and this is one of them, where there must be a winner and loser.
This one is going to be a little bit different because it looks like the baker was trying to make good faith on it, but didn't receive a payment. So then if you're not paid, then you can't provide the service. So let us get into it right now.
This is the plaintiff, Rashina Jones.
My man, he is still rocking. He's still rocking that boutonniere from the wedding. We're going to get as much out of that boutonniere as possible. Go ahead, bro. Don't blame you.
She had no cake ceremony, no cake cutting, nothing. She was so embarrassed on what was supposed to be her special day and is suing this untrustworthy defendant for $5,000 she feels she's owed for pain and suffering.
You didn't have a cake and you're suing for $5,000 for a cake not being there. I want to make sure that I am clear. I understand we've been doing this for over 20 years. So I understand everything should be flawless. Everything we want it to go according to plan and better. But when things don't, you can't make that into something where you can just get a windfall of money. The cake wasn't there. And so that's not worth $5,000. At worst case, let's say double the amount that was actually paid for the services. But that part, there are certain things like with the video that I mentioned before where the photographer basically lost every single picture and didn't give a flip about it. That one was also, it was only awarded $3,000, but this one is because they didn't provide that service and they didn't care about it, and now there are no memories for it. With the cake not being there, I am hard pressed to see if Judge Millian is going to award $5,000 for this. So I'm going to get off my soapbox and try and listen and keep my comments to a minimum. I'll try. $5 grand. Come on. How much do you pay for the wedding?
This is the defendant, Marge Amerl. She says she's been baking cakes for 45 years, and the plaintiff is a very unorganized person who ruined her own wedding.
Shiny.
That's right, she didn't pay her for the wedding cake.
Sorry, let me stop talking and go back. Sorry, I was just talking about old boy's, let me see if I can even see this right here. Old boy's head is shiny. He's got that edge up on lock though. Go ahead, bro, do your thing. All right, now let's go ahead and keep going.
Says she's been baking cakes for 45 years, and the plaintiff is a very unorganized person who ruined her own wedding. That's right, she didn't pay her for the wedding cake. And she's not going to work for free for anyone because she's been burned too many times. Oh, her money? Ha! She's accused of burning a bride-to-be.
She said it ruined her own wedding.
The defendant has filed a countersuit for $3,246 for all she's out.
The cost of the services, the cost of your cake. I could be wrong, and we will find out very soon, but your cake, I'm assuming, is not worth $3,000. So you can't sue for, well, you can sue for anything, but you are not going to be awarded anything more than what's in the contract. Unless there is fraud, then the judge can award more. And from my understanding, again, not legal advice. $3,000.
Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Okay, congratulations on your recent wedding, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Judge.
And your name is?
Antoine Lane.
Okay, and Mr. Lane. When did you get married?
July 6th.
Okay, and you hired the defendant to do a wedding cake for you?
Yes, sir.
Now, you had hired her before to do another cake many years earlier, right?
Yeah, she just did my bridal shower cake a week before the wedding as well.
Correct, and 6 years earlier, you had hired her to do a cake for you for something.
For engagement party.
Another guy?
Yes.
Okay, so she did that cake for you, and according to you, she still owed you money from that.
Yes.
All right. Why had you not sued her for the money or pursued it? You just kind of given up on it?
Yeah, I just gave up on it.
How much money did she owe you from that cake?
$120 plus $10 for the bounce check.
Oh, she bounced a check.
And
30.
so then owing you that money, she calls you and says, I just have to have your cake. And did you realize you owed her the money?
I had paid her the money, and she said, did you pay me? It's been 6 years ago. Did you pay me? I said, yes, and I'm getting married, and I'm having a bridal shower. Really
okay,
gotta
according
have
to you, that's not how it went down.
No.
According to you, how did it go down?
She never paid me. I told her she owed me. I tried for 3 months to get in touch with her through texting.
And she just
She-
ghosted. Just
Well,
didn't answer.
She had a lot of problems here and there, and
I'm going
Would
to say
she
something
answer
here
or
in
she
a
wouldn't
minute, but
answer?
I'm going to let
she'd
this
say,
ride.
"Oh, I'm in the hospital. Oh, I'm in Buffalo."
Do you have any evidence of any of that stuff? Like, did you keep it
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh,
I
yeah.
kept.
from 6 years ago?
I do.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, show it to me.
I love it. I love it. I was going to wait a little bit, but this is perfect. I love it. Just going to touch on this and then let the video rock. I've said this in other videos as well. The vendors like your cake, like the DJ, like decor, like the coordinator and the venue. They'll be paid prior to. It's customary for every vendor to be paid prior to, but those ones that I mentioned specifically have a unique situation because there is no collateral. With a photographer or a videographer, there's collateral, but with the wedding cake, there's no collateral. If you pay let's say the day of the wedding, you write a check and then you eat up all the cake and the check bounces, then that vendor is going to basically do what this vendor had to do, chase you down for 3 months and get all these excuses and then weigh whether to sue or not to sue, to keep pursuing you or to just let it die. And it looks like she was just like, hey, you know what? It's not worth it. It's $130 plus the $10 bounce check fee. So I'm not even going to worry about this. I'm going to keep on pushing and make these cakes and make this money back and not even have to deal with this person again. But then she calls later and is like, hey, I want to get another cake. And she's like, okay, cool. Well, pay me for the other one and then pay me for this one. So this is very, very unique. I like this case. And the fact that she keeps records, I love it. Digital age is fantastic. We use a texting app where we're able to pull and download everything from every text that we've ever sent. So this is, I love exactly what she's doing here. This is awesome.
So now what happens is, according to you, you had already paid her. You have a fresh new deal with her for a cake for your engagement party.
Yes.
That cake gets here. Everything's great with that cake. It's delicious.
June 22nd.
Okay, and
A
then
week
your
before.
wedding is coming up. And
A
what
week later.
happens on the morning of your wedding?
I called her at 8 o'clock. She said, oh, I'll meet you at the hall that the wedding is at. She lives not far from it. She said, oh, I'll meet you there. I said, okay. So I went and met her, and I said, I'm here now. She was like, oh, I'm coming. I'm coming. Me and my husband and I is coming. After 8 o'clock, she didn't come. I'm sitting there with the...
What time were you supposed to meet her there?
At
meeting
8:30.
her?
She said, I'm on my way. I said, I'm on
Why
my
are
way.
you meeting her?
She never... I sat there and waited. I said,
Why are
I'm
you
here
meeting
now.
her on
She
the
said,
wedding
I'm on my
day?
way. I'm coming.
That's why you get a
But she don't live
coordinator.
too
Get a
far from where we had
coordinator.
our reception.
Okay, what happened that morning?
She called me at 8:51
I got the
and said she'll meet me. She says, I'll call you in 5 minutes when I'm dressed, and I'll let you know when I'm on my way. To this day, I still don't know where that reception was.
Okay, well, we will have texts that show what the truth is of that. Let me see the text. In your phone, yeah. Okay, this is a picture of the cake from 6 years ago.
Because I didn't get like my plates and that back off of that one.
So that's the conversation in the phone there with her and I.
Do you have proof of this in the text about how it went down, yes or no?
Yes.
The wedding date was June 21st?
No, that was a shower.
The shower.
She did the shower
This is all
cake.
shower stuff. Okay, the wedding date was what?
July the 6th. The phone conversation that can't be saved, like the time that I called her at 8 o'clock, is not in there.
Why not?
Why not?
Exactly.
You can't, because you can't go back.
Okay, so you don't have
can.
proof. Okay, now here's where we are, July 5th. Do you have your phone?
I do.
Can I see that? The texts in June and July, the end of June and July.
Yeah, the only message I have on the 6th is a GM for good morning. And then I called her back on the phone.
Yeah, we spoke.
Right, what'd you have on the 5th?
Just one at 9:50 some at night.
At 10:57 in the morning, she says, when I met you for the shower, I gave you money and I kept asking what I owe you. Oh, I thought you didn't owe her anything. I've been calling you. Now the day before my wedding, you being like this, I've been calling you. I will come pay you today. I don't want no problems about anything, just to enjoy my special day.
I mean, I'll pay her the balance I owe on the cake.
And then
for
at
now.
9:55, hello. And then on July 6th, good morning. Why aren't you answering her text?
Oh, because I called her and talked to her.
Do you have your phone records of who called you that day or no?
No, because I talked to her after that.
So you called her and told her what on July 5th?
I called and told her what she owed me and that.
How much was it?
I told her like $270. She said,
Because it's the 120 plus the $10 plus what she owes you on the wedding cake?
yeah, well, there was 60 off of that because she gave me 60 when
At
she picked up the
right.
shower cake.
Right. But
And
that's
then-
my point is that it's everything that she would owe you for the 6-year-ago
Yes.
cake and for this cake. Go ahead.
And
What did she say when you told her it's 270?
she said, I don't have that much money.
And then what did you say?
I said, well, I'll meet you to see what you have. I'll work with you.
Okay. And what did she say?
Crazy.
She said, I'll call you in 5 minutes when I'm dressed and headed
Wait,
out.
is this on July 6th?
Yes.
Okay, but did you call her back
And
on
I told
July
her I had
5th?
to
When,
be-
just a second. When the bride is calling you on July 5th and freaking out at 10:57 a.m. July 5th, the day before her wedding, saying, why aren't you answering me? I'm calling you, blah, blah, blah. Why weren't you answering?
Because I was at work.
So when you do answer her, you answer her not by text, but by calling her, you say?
Yes.
And what discussion do you have the day before the wedding?
Oh, I didn't get home until 1 o'clock. I worked until 1 in the morning.
So you really did just ignore her the day before the wedding?
Yeah, but where I work, we can't have our cell phones out, so.
Right, but okay, if you're somebody who's hired to do a wedding cake and the wedding is July 6th, what communication had you had with her July 4th then or July 3rd or whatever?
I was,
Because on July 5th, she's freaking out and needs to talk to you, and then, well, I'm unavailable all day from 10:57 to 1 in the morning.
I can't remember if I talked to her any of those days. All I know is
So
last.
on July 6th, according to you, you talked, were you making a cake or weren't
Oh,
you?
yeah, it was made.
Okay, so it was made when?
That morning.
All right, at 1 a.m. when you're done from work and you look at your phone, you don't see that the bride's been texting you and you don't answer her?
Yeah, but I'm not going to call anybody after 1 in the morning.
You don't have to call, you have to answer by text. Then there'd be an evidence of the communication between you two.
Well, then I'd talk to her in the morning.
Okay, so you talked to her in the morning at what time?
I called her right after she texted me at 8:51.
Okay, and you say 8:51 and you're not, do you have any evidence that it was at 8:51 exactly? How do you know it was at 8:51?
Well, that's the time the text came in for the good morning.
Okay, so according to you, you call her right away, and what happens?
I told her what she owed me and that I'd meet her somewhere to get the payment
Okay.
because the cake had to be paid for before
Now,
the
she
wedding.
described a situation where you say, I'm on my way. How does she say I'm on my way? There's no text that say any of this stuff you're saying.
After that, we communicate, we talk.
By phone.
Yeah,
All right,
she
so
said I'm
there's
on my
no
way.
written evidence of what happens that morning.
That's a tough
Your
one.
version is, I went to the hall and I waited for her and she never showed up.
She never showed, no.
And then
What hall, though?
happens? Because
Where's
if
the
she
address?
didn't show
I'm just going to stop here. If you've been doing cakes, and weddings and all this for 45 years, then you should have a contract. There should be some communication. You need to know where to go and not the morning of, like, where's the wedding? Where's the venue going to be? Like, she knows where the venue is. So why not have something about this to say, I didn't know where to go? That is crazy. The day of the wedding, you don't know where to go and you're waiting on the bride who has got all this stuff to do, the hair, the makeup, first look, photos before the wedding, like all this stuff. And you got to meet her to get paid and meet her to figure out where to go. That's crazy.
up and it's 8 in the morning, don't you start calling her and texting her? I would expect to see the same, panic text
Yeah, I
from the day
think
before.
I don't know if they were erased, but after that, my daughter,
Oh,
because
they
I'm
both
getting
were
ready and they
erased,
get me ready, my daughter started texting her and calling.
Can I see your
where?
daughter's
Yeah.
text?
No, but she had a
Well, you're
statement.
coming to court and you're suing for $5,000. I'd like to see the proof of the text that she dropped the ball that morning, because she says you dropped the ball. Now, do you have any evidence of how the conversation went that morning? No, same thing. You're calling
No,
each other. According to you, what happens that morning? You call her after the good morning text, and what?
And I waited for her to call me back. And
You
I-
call her and wait. You call her and you talk to her,
Yeah, I
and
called her
she
after that
says
text.
what?
That she'll call me back in 5 minutes and tell me when she's on the way to the hall.
And then she never calls you.
Right, and I still didn't know where the hall was.
So do you have any evidence of ever telling her where the hall was? Do you have anything? First of all, is
Where?
there
Yeah.
a contract
Thank
between you two?
Thank you.
No, because she.
Okay, do
No,
you have
not no,
any
because
emails or
your
texts where
fault.
you actually
Your fault,
let your cake lady
defendant.
know where the hall is?
Can I see my phone real quick?
Yep. Okay, so according to you, she says, I'll call you back, and then the bride never calls you back. And then she does call you when you're at work, and that's at what time?
Oh, I got a call at 8:30 that night telling me, we want the cake, we have the money.
All right, what did you do
Oh
with
my
the cake?
God.
I used part of it the next day, and
Do you have any pictures of the cake?
no, I don't take a picture until I'm done setting up.
So, according to you, you get a call at 8 something from
8:30
who?
at night. I don't know who it was from.
And
My
what time
daughter.
was your wedding?
6 was the wedding's
How
at
did
3.
no one notice there was no cake until 8 o'clock at night?
No, we've been calling her before that.
Do you have any
where's the
evidence
proof
of
for
calling
that?
her
Proof.
before
Yes, my
that?
daughter.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Where?
according
Show
to
me.
you,
Show me.
what happens is that she blows it off. You know, it's her wedding day. She's not on it. And then you go to work at what time?
I went to work at 2 o'clock.
So between 8:30, when you haven't heard from her, and 2 o'clock, did you say, what are you doing? I have your cake. Why aren't you calling me back? Anything like that?
No, I had to go to work.
And if according to you, my dear, you had paid everything and owed her nothing, why are there all these texts that I see from you back then, which I don't know how you even got. It's fabulous.
I just never deleted them.
Can you bring up the text again? On July 5th at 10:02, which is the day before the wedding, you say to her, send me the flavors you want and the time I can get in the hall. And then on July 5th at 10:57, when I met you for the shower, I gave you, she says, I'm sorry, she answers, when I met you for the shower, I gave you money and I kept asking you what I owe you. If you don't owe her anything, why are you asking her that?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. I owe her from this new cake.
Oh,
I wanted to pay her all at
You
once.
know what you owe her. You know what the cake cost. There was already an agreement on what the cake cost. I gave you money and I kept asking you what I owe you. I've been calling you now the day before
I
my
think this
wedding.
is
You're
a
being
wash.
like this.
0-0.
I've
is
been
what I'm gonna
calling
say.
you.
0
I
plaintiff,
will come and
0
pay you
for
today.
defendant.
I don't
Wash
want
it
no
out.
problems about anything, just to enjoy my special day. Hello, and then good morning on July 6th. Okay, this is just a text from your daughter saying, during the wedding, I texted Cake Lady. The wedding started at 6, so that's not, okay. She never texted back. Yeah, she's at work at 6. I called her, she answered and hung up in my face saying she'd be there. I would show the calls and messages, but I got a new phone, so she has no evidence.
No evidence.
Honestly, I don't know who's telling the truth.
So it's
You
a
have a
wash.
story, she has a story. Each of you have a completely different
And
story.
no proof.
She didn't even go to work
Proof.
until 2. I'm asking you proof to me that you tried to meet her that morning and you can't do it. And she says, Judge, that's not true. They finally start worrying about things at 6 o'clock at night. And I was waiting for her to call me and tell me where to go. There's not one place where you tell her where the hall is. Not
In the
one.
conversation we told her.
Okay, well then you say verbally it was one thing, and she says verbally it was the other. The plaintiff, when they come to court, have
That's
the
the
burden
burden
of
of
proving
proof.
their case.
Burden of proof. Let's
You're
get
the
it.
ones with the burden. She doesn't. You've got to prove it. So it behooves you to have all the evidence you can to show that she ghosted and she's a terrible person and she didn't supply the cake for your wedding, and so
But-
you're entitled to, $2,500 in pain and suffering, which turned into mental anguish and discrimination. Discrimination? On what? And the fact that she's white and you're black? Is that what you mean?
Lady Cake that introduced me to her said she'd been doing their cakes for 40 years. She put the money in a box in the barn. That's where she lives at, and she takes the cake. She said
What's the
she never.
discrimination?
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. So, should the bride and groom get just the money for the cake if they could prove their case, which I'm not sure they could, or the entire value of the reception?
I say just for the cake.
Because
Thank you. I thought it was just me for being a
That
dude.
was the mess up of the whole thing. The cake was the worst part.
Fair enough, but the counter is that the cake is so important for the reception was ruined.
I understand it was ruined, but I still think that they should only get the price of the
Value
cake.
of the cake.
Not the
Thank
Sir?
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
she should get damages for the damaged cake only.
For the damaged cake,
Damaged
it's a
cake.
non-existent cake, sir. Okay, going inside the courtroom.
Molly's Caucasian and I'm black. And
So
she
it
does-
is that. You're
she
saying
does her
that
cake.
she did
I
that
don't
to
know
you 'cause
exactly what it is. I just want to know why.
I don't know.
It's your lawsuit.
Come on, man. You don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm black and she's white. So I'm just going to say she discriminates against us. I'm not even going to dignify that. Ugh.
I'm asking
I
you
don't- I
what
just
you
wanna
are
know why.
suing
I
for
don't know exactly what
discrimination
it is.
for. So you want $5,000 for a cake, and then what is it you're asking? Because your lawsuit was, I want my $60 that I'm owed for the cake, $50 for plates, and $136 in lost wages. Tell me about your counterclaim, which is now you've added $3,000, which
I said the same thing. What?
by
Why?
I don't
Why?
even
Why?
know what you're saying.
Why?
Mental
Why?
abuse. Okay, you tell me about your counterclaim. Go ahead.
Just because 6 years trying to get anything
Oh,
from
yeah,
her.
okay.
And then having to go through all
Okay,
this.
you get
I
your
mean,
money. Bye.
She upped
Tell
it
me your lawsuit specifically. The balance owed for the cake. What cake?
from the cake 6 years ago.
I thought you said
paid
it
it. She
was
paid it.
120.
It was 120. She did pay $60, and it
Okay.
got put towards that.
So according
Because
to
I
you-
told her it was getting added into what the wedding cake was.
Okay. And then what plate's $50? First you said 30, today you changed it to 50. What's that?
Yeah, because I didn't realize the plates I lost. I went
What
to...
plates are we talking?
In the picture?
In 2013 or
Yes,
in 2019?
2013.
What kind of plates were those?
In the cake picture you have up
I
there.
saw those. What
There
makes
was
them
a-
$50?
There was a glass 3-tiered plate in the back.
Yeah, but that's what evidence do you have that that's worth $50?
I don't.
Okay.
That was one of the
And
few
what's
things
good
I
for the
didn't
goose is
do.
good for the gander. And then $136 in lost wages, $17 an hour, 8 hours. What
Yeah.
are you talking about?
Come in
I
here.
had to take a day's work to come here.
Oh, you don't get to get that. You don't get
Yeah,
to
it's not
sue for that. No.
And then what's the $3,000?
Because she tacked on today, so I said, I'll tack on today.
Your Honor, can I have a question?
No, there's no more talk
there's
by
no
you.
more
Now
talking.
it's my
Thank you.
ruling. And
And
it's
it's
not, you come to
zero,
court, you have
maybe,
the burden of proving the case.
The
It's not a criminal case.
defendant
You
gets
don't have to
money, but it's
prove
going to
it
be like
beyond
a
and to the exclusion of every
$200.
reason. Whatever, you got to prove something.
Right.
You know, you got to come here with
51,
something other than
49,
flapping gums. You got to be able to
51,
show me stuff.
20 of
On
them.
your lawsuit against her,
Zero.
I am ruling in favor of the defendant. And on the defendant's lawsuit against you, I am ruling that you do owe her that remaining $60 based on the text where you're constantly asking what you owe her, and you didn't get your cake because you didn't pay her. And you're just pulling out of the air this $50 owed for plates. I don't know. I mean, you owed something because I see from all your texts in 2013 that you were able to get that clearly she never got around to worrying about you. What I don't understand is why, on God's green earth, you would agree to do business for her again
Exactly.
without making her pay you what you thought
Exactly.
she owed you.
Exactly.
People told me not to, but I did.
Okie dokie. So
Do it again?
I'm
Would you do
going
it
to
again?
award you a depreciated $25 for that, sum total on your counterclaim against her, nothing for lost wages, nothing for abuse of
85
whatever.
bucks.
And I'm going to order her to pay you the $85 that she still owes you from 2013 and the last engagement. Good luck to everybody, especially to you two in your marriage.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, she said discrimination.
Well, it just
that
didn't work out for the
pisses me
plaintiff.
off.
Ms. Jones, I got to tell you, the judge gave you plenty
Oh,
time.
she was
to
like,
get
I'm
where
out of
you're
here.
going.
Oh,
Come over
she
here.
dipping.
I want to know what you're thinking. You had plenty of time to come up with that evidence that the judge needed to find for you.
Yes.
You just
Well, I
didn't
got
have
the
it.
evidence from my daughter
No,
that
you
she
don't.
was
No,
texting.
you met
No,
me
you
here
don't.
right now.
No.
Yeah, I had them.
No, you
She
don't.
didn't take them.
No,
The
no,
text
no,
messages.
No, that
Come
text, she
on,
did
you've
take
been
it. It's
waiting,
hearsay.
and It just didn't work.
It's
The phone logs
hearsay.
are right here that my daughter sent.
Sorry it didn't work. The wedding, by the way, did it work without a cake?
Well, it was so beautiful, and if
You
you,
did
love
get
each other,
married,
you don't
right?
have to have a cake. But I was really upset about the cake.
Oh,
yes.
okay. You're really upset about the
Thank you
cake.
very
It was
much.
worth
I
$5
understand.
grand.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
Very
So
good.
upset it should cost
All
$5
right.
grand.
Well, you got a strange look on your face. What are you thinking?
It's interesting.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
She has an interesting demeanor.
Just glad it's done and over.
And
You're
I
a big
bet if
talker.
she calls you for another cake,
Quiet.
Okay,
you
you
will
are.
do it
I
again.
don't think you'll make any more cakes for her, will you?
Yeah, you would.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Thank
would.
you very much.
Yes, you would.
Harvey?
Okay, Doug, here's the thing. You have to be responsive in these contracts when you're negotiating. If somebody says something to you and you're in the middle of a contract and it's a dispute, you better answer that person, because if you don't, that can just bite you in the butt, because silence sometimes
Means
equals
acceptance. So that was a very interesting case. I said it before, all of this inflated costs because of pain and suffering. There are times when it is awarded, but for the most part, even the pool on the street said it, that it's the cost of the cake at maximum. Like I said, maybe a little bit more if you did drop the ball. And I do want to touch again on the payment part of it. I've got some videos and some podcasts and such where I've talked about payment. And it seems like a running theme that a lot of brides and grooms, a lot of couples out there are worried that if they pay their vendor before the wedding, that vendor's not going to show up. If you do your research on the vendor, then you shouldn't have anything to worry about. Meaning, if you check out the reviews, if they are a referral from a venue, if they are a referral from a relative, then you have some more peace of mind to not worry about that because their reputation is everything. The lady there in this particular case was a side hustle baker. She had a regular job and she bakes cakes on the side, which is fine, fantastic. So typically her clients will be word of mouth, and they will, you know, you did a cake for somebody else, so then they gave them the information and now they're doing your cake. So you have that peace of mind. You know that they've showed up at other people's weddings or their events. So on the other side of that, you have vendors where you find them online in some capacity, and you can only go by their reviews. So if you see something in the reviews that says they didn't show up, and especially if it happens more than once or if they only have a couple reviews, then your suspicions are warranted. And instead of then saying, I'm going to hold this money until after the event to make sure that you show up, it should be, I'm not going to hire this person. I'm going to hire someone that I feel comfortable giving the money because their reputation shows that they're going to show up. And as you see in a case just like this, and I've explained it in other videos, when you have a service that there's no collateral, the DJ, the florist, the baker, then you can't unhear music. You've already used the flowers in your bouquet, so those are utilized. You already ate the cake.
Come on.
There is nothing for the vendor to do other than chase you down if you don't pay. I'm not saying that you're not going to pay, but if the client doesn't pay, then they have to chase the client down. As you saw there, 2013 to 2019, 6 years of not getting paid, $100.
20, 40, 60, 80, 100, 120, 140.
That's $100.
And she was just, you know, blowing her off for whatever reason. I don't have the money or whatever it is, but she blew her off for 6 years. So this is the kind of the extreme. And then finally, after 6 years, she gets her, well, I guess $60 before the wedding and then $60 in this lawsuit. So if you're worried about the vendor taking the money that you gave them and not showing up, then in my opinion, you hired the wrong vendor.
The wrong finger. I gave the man the wrong finger.
Do your due diligence and find the vendor that you like and that you do trust, instead of hiring a vendor that is.
The Amazing 8 Personalities of Brad Williams, a case study in MPD, multiple personality disorder.
The most economical, and then you have this fear all throughout this wedding planning process. That is just my humble opinion. And I also want to talk about contracts. Please, I've said this so many times, have a signed contract. I don't care if it's for a $20 trinket at your wedding. Have a signed contract so that they know as the vendor what they're supposed to provide, and you know as the client what you are supposed to do. Without it in writing, then you have this he said, she said. You have this ambiguity. You have chances of things going wrong, which typically do if you don't have a signed contract. So please, 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 for your wedding, please, please, every vendor that you work with, have a signed contract. And once that contract is signed, the only way to change it is to then have something in writing. In the age of text messages, that can be considered changing the contract. So let's say, for instance, the wedding starts at 4 p.m. and it goes until midnight. So what is that? 8 hours. And I need the photographer. So you write out a contract and you say, I need the photographer from 3 p.m. until midnight. So that's actually 9 hours. And the cost of the services is $2,500. And you get a photographer and a digital download and a copyright release of the photos. That is all written in the contract. And then months go by and you decide to text this photographer and say, I need you to start at 2 o'clock. And the photographer can say, okay, I'll start at 2 o'clock and then end at 11. Or I'll go start at 2 and end at midnight. And for that extra time, it'll be another $300. If you then text them back and say, okay, done, then that is considered a change to the contract in writing. Hashtag not legal advice. This could be considered. A judge could swing either way. But the main thing is that you can make a change, but it has to be in writing. You can't call the photographer and say, can you start at 3 o'clock or 2 o'clock? Can you start at 2 o'clock? And the photographer says yes. And then you hang up the phone and there's nothing in writing. Then there is no written proof of that. So I'm off of my contracts high horse. This was, I guess, the case that I thought it would be. Boils down to the contract, pain and suffering, out the window. And the defendant actually won their countersuit of payment that was due 6 years prior. It's crazy. So that is another reaction video. My name is Damon with Complete. And again, please understand, this is just for fun. It is not legal advice. I'm just a guy that runs a company that likes watching court shows. I like to mix everything together and see what I come up with. So I thank you for checking me out and rocking with me one more time. And I will see you on the next one.